When Americans think of love abroad, they often imagine passion, beauty, and adventure. But few are ready for what happens when they fall for someone from Ethiopia, one of the world's oldest civilizations, wrapped in mystery, faith, and pride. Ethiopia isn't just another country. It's a kingdom of tradition, faith, and silence that outsiders rarely understand. Meet Daniel, an American from Boston. He came to Addis Ababa for work, confident, open-minded, curious. Then he met Hannah. She was elegant, soft-spoken, with eyes that carried a calm fire. She had the poise of someone raised with discipline and faith. Daniel, who grew up in a culture of freedom and individualism, was captivated. At first, the connection felt magical. She was different from any woman he had met, graceful, respectful, mysterious. Her values intrigued him: humility, devotion, and loyalty. He felt she brought peace to his chaotic world. But what he didn't know was that behind that peace was an entire cultural system that would eventually clash with everything he believed in, because dating an Ethiopian isn't just dating a person, it's dating a nation, built on faith, hierarchy, and sacred family honor. In America, love means independence. In Ethiopia, love means obedience to tradition. In America, freedom defines identity. In Ethiopia, faith defines worth. And when those two worlds collide, someone always pays the price. Daniel thought love could conquer cultural boundaries. But in Ethiopia, love is never just love. It's a moral duty. And that's where the storm begins. The foundation of Ethiopian culture is faith, Orthodox Christianity that dates back to the 4th century. For many Ethiopians, faith isn't a Sunday ritual. It's a way of life. It dictates what you eat, what you wear, when you marry, and even when you love. Hannah prayed every morning and fasted every Wednesday and Friday. Daniel admired her dedication, but he didn't understand it. When he offered her dinner during fasting hours, she smiled politely and declined. He thought it was sweet, until her refusal became routine. When he tried to kiss her in public, she pulled away. "We don't do that here," she said softly. He laughed, thinking she was shy. But to her, public affection was disrespectful, to God, to elders, to family. In America, religion is private. In Ethiopia, religion is identity. It governs behavior, emotion, and even time itself. During holy seasons, love pauses. Passion must wait. Daniel felt she was distant. Hannah felt he was reckless. He called it freedom. She called it sin. What he saw as romance, she saw as temptation. The more he tried to express love his way, the more she withdrew into her world of devotion and discipline. He wanted warmth, she wanted grace. He wanted closeness, she wanted purity. And that's the first truth many Americans don't realize. In Ethiopia, love without faith is meaningless, and faith without restraint is impossible. In America, relationships belong to two people. In Ethiopia, they belong to two families, sometimes even two villages. Hannah's parents were quiet but powerful presences. Her father never said much, but his silence carried judgment. Her mother observed Daniel with polite distance. Every visit felt like an interview. At first, Daniel tried to impress them with kindness and humor, but his jokes didn't land. His casual attitude was seen as immaturity. When he offered to cook dinner, they looked confused. A man in the kitchen? That was not a good sign. In Ethiopia, gender roles are ancient. A woman's grace comes from humility, and a man's worth comes from leadership. When Daniel treated Hannah as an equal, her family thought he was weak. When he let her make decisions, they whispered that he lacked authority, and family opinions matter a lot. In Ethiopian society, elders' approval can make or break a relationship. Hannah's mother told her, "Love is not enough. Marry a man who respects our ways." But Daniel didn't understand those unspoken rules. He believed love should be free of conditions. She believed love must be blessed by family. The difference wasn't small, it was a cultural wall. He wanted independence. She wanted permission. He wanted partnership. She wanted protection. And neither could give what the other needed. Ethiopian love is quiet, but it's not weak. Under the surface lies deep loyalty and sometimes deep jealousy. Daniel was used to openness, laughing with female colleagues, hugging friends, sharing stories online. To Hannah, that felt wrong. Ethiopian culture values emotional modesty, especially for women. Love must be sacred, not displayed. When Daniel posted pictures with friends, Hannah grew distant. "Why do you share everything?" she asked. "It's just social media," he said. But to her, it was a betrayal of intimacy. In her world, privacy protects purity. Ethiopian women love fiercely but privately. They give their all, but only after trust is proven. And that trust can be fragile. A small lie, a late call, a wrong tone, everything matters. Daniel found her sensitivity exhausting. She found his casualness insulting. He wanted a relationship built on openness. She wanted one built on discretion. What he didn't realize is that in Ethiopia, love and respect are inseparable. You can't love someone without respecting community norms. You can't express passion without honoring silence. To an American, silence feels like distance. To an Ethiopian, silence is devotion. It's protection. From gossip, from pride, from temptation, the deeper they fell in love, the more they misunderstood each other. He saw mystery. She saw danger. And between freedom and faith, jealousy found its place. The cracks became clear when Daniel asked Hannah to move with him to the U.S. She hesitated. "I can't just leave," she said. "Why not?" he asked. "You can visit your family any time." She looked away. "It's not that simple. In Ethiopia, leaving home isn't just physical, it's emotional betrayal. Family ties are sacred, and moving away is often seen as abandoning roots. A daughter doesn't just belong to herself. She belongs to her parents, her church, her community. Daniel couldn't grasp that. In America, independence is celebrated. In Ethiopia, it's questioned. He offered her freedom. She saw it as exile, and when he joked about her traditions, the fasting, the blessings, the constant presence of elders, she didn't laugh. "You think our ways are small," she said. "No," he replied, "just different." But for her, different meant less sacred. He wanted her to adapt to his world. She wanted him to respect hers. But when love becomes a debate over whose culture should bend, it's already dying. Ethiopian culture carries centuries of endurance. Americans live in the moment. Ethiopians live for legacy. Americans believe in personal happiness. Ethiopians believe in family honor. And so, when Daniel tried to reshape Hannah's traditions to fit his comfort, she withdrew. He thought she was cold. She thought he was arrogant. Both were wrong. They were just raised by worlds that taught them opposite meanings of love. Ethiopia is one of the oldest civilizations on earth, and with age comes hierarchy. In love as in life, everyone has a place. Men lead, women nurture. Families guide, God oversees. Daniel tried to live as he always did. Equal partnership, shared chores, open opinions. But to Hannah, that looked like imbalance. A man who asks for equality is a man without direction. She didn't say it out loud, but her silence spoke louder than words. When he forgot to lead in small things, choosing a restaurant, planning a trip, she felt uneasy. When he showed vulnerability, she felt confused. In her eyes, love wasn't about sharing burdens. It was about feeling protected. Ethiopian women are raised to be strong, but never dominant. American men are raised to admire strength, even in women. The collision was subtle but constant. One evening, after an argument about finances, Hannah said quietly, "A man should never argue over money with a woman." Daniel was stunned. "Why not?" "We both work." She shook her head. "Because when you count what you give, you take away respect." He saw logic. She saw honor. In Ethiopia, love is not transactional. It's built on sacrifice and duty. A man's love is proven by what he provides, not what he negotiates. But Daniel came from a world where fairness means equality. And equality in her eyes felt cold. Every gesture that he thought was modern, she saw as selfish. Every act of care that she offered, he saw as submission. Neither was wrong, but both were trapped by worlds that wrote their rules long before they were born. Freedom was Daniel's oxygen. Faith was Hannah's heartbeat. Together they couldn't breathe. When he invited her to join his friends at a modern art exhibition, she declined. "It's on a fasting day," he laughed. "You can skip once." Her silence said everything. Skipping wasn't rebellion as it was sin. In America, religion bends to lifestyle. In Ethiopia, lifestyle bends to religion. Hannah's world revolved around divine order. Prayer before dawn, fasting before joy, humility before comfort. To Daniel it looked like repression. To her it was peace. He asked, "Don't you ever get tired of rules?" She smiled softly. "Rules protect us from ourselves." That line haunted him. In his culture, rules were limits. In hers, they were anchors. The tension grew when he brought a bottle of wine to her family's house. Her father's eyes turned cold. Alcohol in their home was a sign of moral carelessness. Daniel's gesture of warmth became an insult. Every attempt to show love turned into misunderstanding. Every word he spoke broke an invisible rule. He thought he was being spontaneous. She thought he was being careless. He wanted love to be wild. She wanted it to be sacred. And slowly, faith became the wall between them. She couldn't love a man who didn't respect her devotion. He couldn't love a woman who placed God above him. The irony? Both were right, just born under different heavens. It didn't end with a fight. It ended with silence, the kind that hurts more than anger. Daniel noticed Hannah withdrawing, her warmth fading into distance. She stopped answering his calls immediately. Her messages became polite, not affectionate. When he asked what was wrong, she said, "You wouldn't understand." He begged to fix it. She smiled sadly. "It's not about fixing. It's about belonging." Hannah's family had started pressuring her to consider an Ethiopian man, one who understood the rhythm of her world, who wouldn't challenge her traditions. She resisted at first. But every argument with Daniel made the idea more appealing. Every misunderstanding made her faith feel stronger and his freedom feel foreign. Daniel tried everything: compromise, logic, gifts, apologies. But nothing could change one truth. He loved a woman shaped by a culture that didn't bend. Their last meeting was quiet. A small cafe near Bowl Road on a rainy afternoon. She wore white, the color of purity in her culture. He wore gray, the color of confusion. "I will always care for you," she said. "But I was not raised to live your way." "And I wasn't raised to live yours," he replied. There were no tears, just understanding. Two worlds that had tried to blend, now realizing they were never meant to. As she walked away, Daniel felt something break. Not his heart, but his belief that love was enough. Because sometimes love can cross oceans, but not history. Months later, Daniel returned to the U.S. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the calm strength in her silence, the way her faith shaped every decision. He didn't hate her culture anymore. He respected it. But he finally saw the truth. What Americans call love often means self-expression, while in Ethiopia, love means sacrifice. He began noticing how his own culture worshipped emotion, while hers worshipped endurance. He remembered how she never raised her voice, even in pain. In America, silence is weakness. In Ethiopia, silence is dignity. He remembered how she prayed before eating, before sleeping, before leaving the house. In America, prayer is personal. In Ethiopia, it's survival. He remembered her father's firm handshake, strong, distant, protective. In America, parents let go. In Ethiopia, they never do. For the first time, Daniel realized love isn't universal. It's cultural. The way people express care, trust, and commitment isn't instinct. It's inheritance. And sometimes, two inheritances can't coexist without one being erased. So should Americans date Ethiopians? The answer depends on what kind of love you're looking for. If you want fire and independence, you'll struggle. If you crave loyalty, humility, and deep-rooted faith, you'll be enchanted. But you can't have both. Ethiopian culture demands devotion to God, to family, to order. American culture demands freedom, to explore, to express, to question. When those two collide, someone always surrenders. The truth is, Ethiopians don't fall in love the American way. Their love isn't loud. It's quiet, spiritual, enduring. It's not built on equality but on duty, not on passion but on peace. And that's why Americans often find themselves lost in it, because they mistake calm for coldness and discipline for distance. But what Americans call restriction, Ethiopians call respect. What Americans call control, Ethiopians call protection. What Americans call faith, Ethiopians call life. So maybe love between these two worlds isn't impossible, but it's never easy. Because love isn't just emotion, it's translation. And some languages are too sacred to be rewritten. When you mix freedom with faith, individualism with obedience, noise with silence, you don't create balance. You create chaos. So before you fall for someone from a world as ancient and disciplined as Ethiopia, ask yourself one thing. Are you looking for love or for yourself? Because in Ethiopia you can't have both.